Hey Village, hope you're all well and enjoying the sunshine and stuff this week, and maybe getting some socially distant hanging out done. That would be good as well. Today's an historic day. I don't know if you knew this, but it is at 9:33 p.m. Two American astronauts are going to launch from Florida in a commercially built spacecraft to go and rendezvous with the International Space Station 408 kilometers above the Earth. Now, it's an historic day for more reasons than just the fact that it's Americans launching an American aircraft or American spacecraft from American soil. I guess if you're American, that makes it more historic. But the real reason it's historic is because this is a massive step in the journey and in the goal of getting people to Mars. SpaceX, the company who built this spacecraft, was founded with that purpose of landing people on Mars. And so that's been their goal and their purpose the whole way through since they were founded 18 years ago. So whether you're the person who makes the coffee or the person who sweeps the floor or an astronaut or a chief engineer or anything in between, then you work towards that purpose of landing people on Mars. That's what you're there for. And the thing about human beings is that we do pretty well with a sense of purpose, don't we? I mean, think of all the things that have ever been accomplished with a sense of purpose. Edmund Hillary climbing Mount Everest, the Taj Mahal being built, the Eiffel Tower, the Mona Lisa. When you have a sense of purpose and you want to do something, the things that we can achieve are pretty incredible. And I think these things are to be celebrated. But when we lose that sense of purpose, things don't tend to go so well for us. You just have to look over the past wee while in lockdown. People have lost that sense of purpose. You don't have that purpose of getting up and getting out and go to work for a while. And so we've descended into the world of internet lockdown challenges. So you had the toilet roll keep you up challenge, which to be fair is pretty impressive when you see someone like Messi or Bruno Fernandes doing it. It's pretty impressive. Or you had the TikTok dance challenges, pretty impressive. My parents-in-law, they did a pretty impressive one, which was good. You also had like the ping pong ball, trick shot challenges. You had the run 5, donate 5, nominate 5 challenge, all these kind of different challenges that happen when people lose that sense of purpose. Because when we lose that sense of purpose, what we do is we try to come up with a purpose. We try to give ourselves something to do because this is the way we are. This is in our nature that we have a purpose. And the Bible wouldn't argue with us. Actually, when you read the Bible, the Bible argues a lot about talks a lot about purpose. Recently, I started reading through the book of the Psalms from end to beginning, because I don't know about you, but sometimes when I start to read the Psalms, I'm very familiar with the ones at the start, and then the ones in the middle start to get a little bit less familiar, and then I don't know the ones at the end very well at all. And so I thought I'd start at the end and read my way backwards. And the other day I got to Psalm 138. This is a Psalm of David. And it's a psalm about he's thanking God for helping him through times of trouble. God has heard his voice and he has saved him. And he's trusting God to save him. And this is how it goes. Psalm 138, David says, I give thanks, O Lord, with my whole heart. Before the gods, I sing your praise. The gods there is a small g, it's like heavenly beings. But for the angels, I sing your praise. I bow down towards your holy temple and give thanks to your name for your steadfast love and your faithfulness, for you have exalted above all things your name and your word. On the day I called, you answered me. My strength of soul you increased. All the kings of the earth shall give you thanks, O Lord, for they have heard the words of your mouth. And they shall sing of the ways of the Lord, for great is the glory of the Lord. For though the Lord is high, he regards the lowly, but the haughty he knows from afar. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the wrath of my enemies, and your right hand delivers me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. I don't know if you caught that last little bit in verse 8 there. David says, the Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. You see, David was going through some pretty challenging stuff. I don't know exactly what was going on at the time when he wrote this, but we know he's a man who fought many battles. He was a man who was hunted, King Saul trying to take his life. And so he went through some real troublesome times. But yet within that, he knows that the Lord will fulfill his purpose for him. See, God's purpose seems to trump David's own purpose for his life. And it's the same for us, that no matter what we're going through, God will fulfill his purposes for us. You may feel that you don't have a purpose right now, but the good news is that God has a purpose for you and he will see it through. See, far more important than our own purposes are the purposes that God has for us. When we're left to our own devices, the best that we can come up with is doing keepy-uppies with a toilet roll and sticking it on the internet, or building a spacecraft and taking it to Mars. And as impressive as that is, it's still kind of just passing the time. It's not an ultimate purpose. It has a finite time frame. One day, the fact that humans did or did not get to Mars won't matter that much. But the purpose that God has for us is eternal. The purpose that God has for us is what we were created to do. I don't know if you've ever heard someone say that, or maybe you've felt it or said it yourself. I was born to do this. Well, really, what you were born to do, what you were created to do, was worship God and glorify him forever. That's what God's purpose for us is. It's to save us. In the book of the Psalms, when it talks of God's purpose, it's almost always to do with salvation. God's purpose for us is to save us, to save us from this fallen and sinful world, and to bring us into the new creation where we will live literally in the light of his glory and sing his praise in perfect life and perfect love forever, to fulfill our potential, to live for what we were created for. That's how God is fulfilling his purpose for us. Psalm 57 is also a psalm of David, and in that psalm, David is describing how Saul is pursuing him, wants to take his life, and it's a trouble. He's living in caves, and he's really fearful for his life, even for the time he has to go and live with the enemies of Israel. But this is what it says in Psalm 57. It says, I cry out to Most High God, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. He will send from heaven and save me. He will put to shame him who tramples on me. God will send out his steadfast love and his faithfulness. You see, David knows that God will fulfill his purpose. His saving purposes will be fulfilled. And there's plenty of examples in the Bible of people who, maybe lost their sense of purpose for a while. We think of Moses leading the Israelites around the desert aimlessly for 40 years. Can you imagine how he felt? But Lord, you told me that I was going to bring these people out of Egypt and we were going to go to the promised land. What were we doing wandering in the desert? Or you think of the Apostle Paul who desperately wanted to go to Spain to share the gospel. And he gets imprisoned in Rome and his plans are interrupted. And he's going, but Lord, I desperately I want to do your will. I want to go and share the gospel with these people in Spain. And he's maybe lost the sense of purpose a little bit. Or John, the Apostle John, who wants to lead the churches and share the gospel, and he gets exiled to the island of Patmos. It would have been easy for him too to lose his sense of purpose. But see, all these people knew that God would fulfill his purpose for them. What's important is not what we desire for our own lives. What's important is not what we purpose for our own lives, but what God purposes for us. And so even if we think that or feel that things have got a little bit derailed right now, they haven't. God is still at work in your life. God will fulfill his purpose for your life. You will be saved if you're a Christian. You will be with him forever. Your purpose will be fulfilled by God. In The Lord of the Rings, there's a character called Aragorn, and he's an heir to the throne. But he rejects that path many, many years ago, and he's kind of a wanderer character. And there's a poem about him because, in many ways, one of the main storylines of those books is about him taking his place on the throne. But there's a poem about him in the book, and it says, "Not all those who wander are lost. Not all those who wander are lost." And listen, it may feel maybe like you're wandering right now. Even with our MCs, you might think, what can we do? We can't meet in the same way. Or maybe with your job, you're thinking, I can't do the things I had planned all these plans. I want to go on holiday. You may feel like you're wandering right now, but we are not lost. Maybe you had some big plans for 2020, and they got disrupted. We are not lost. You are not lost. God is at work, and he will complete his saving work in you. He will bring you to the new creation where you will be with him in glory forever. Philippians 1:6, Paul says that I'm sure of this, that he who begun his good work in you will bring it to completion on the day of Jesus Christ. That God has started this saving work in us, as it were, and he will finish it. It's a guarantee. So in spite of everything that's going on right now, God is still fulfilling his purposes for you. He will complete the work that he has begun in you because he never fails. He loves us with a love that never fails. That's how we know that he will fulfill his work in us. I don't know if you noticed at the end of Psalm 138, just that same verse, the Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. And then David breaks it as this prayer. He speaks to God. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. Your steadfast love, O Lord, endures forever. So we can be sure that God will fulfill his purpose for us because his love endures forever. And this idea that love endures forever, that's not just it starts now and continues and never ends. That means that it's everlasting. And love everlasting has no beginning and has no end. God has loved us since before there was time, and he will love us long after there is no time. We can be sure that God will never stop loving us because he has always loved us. There never was a time when he didn't love us. Isn't that an incredible thought? And so we can be sure that he will complete his work in us, that he will fulfill his purpose for us. So maybe you feel a bit listless or disengaged, or maybe you feel that you don't really have a sense of purpose or an aim or direction right now. Listen, that's okay. Many people in the Bible felt that way. Many Christians throughout history have felt that way. But God has a purpose for you, and it's far more glorious than any purpose you could ever come up with for yourself anyway. Don't worry about those plans that you've had to let go. Don't worry about those dreams that have seemed to be put on hold right now, because God has a purpose for you and he will see it to completion. You will be brought into his presence and glory. That's as good as done because he has said it, and he loves us with this love that never ends, love that endures forever. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for you.